Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Etal Sabila. I'm from Group 3. I want to explain the translation procedure. So what is translation procedure? Translation procedure are technical devices used to transfer to the meaning of a text in one language into a text in another language. So there are so many translation procedures. First, we have transfer. According to Newmark, transfer is the process of transferring a search language word to a target language text. It also includes transliteration, which relates to the conversion to different alphabets. For example, homes for those with leprosy and HIV or AIDS. Rumah-rumah untuk penderita lepra dan HIV atau AIDS. So the acronym of HIV or AIDS is not translated anymore because this acronym is generally known among Indonesian people and commonly used in textbook or in mana-mana gitu udah generally known gitu by Indonesian people. So, and then the second is naturalization. This procedure is quite same as the transfer procedure. However, while transferring such language word or phrase into target language without changes. For example, immune environment that lead to chronic and recurrent ear infections, colds, sinus infections, sore throat, bouts with the flu, bronchitis, or pneumonia as well are chronic and recurrent infection of all types. Jadi kerusakan kekebalan tubuh yang mengakibatkan radang keringat, pilek, radang sinus, tenggorokan serak, influenza, bronchitis. So the social language is bronchitis and the translation bronchitis. And then the third is cultural equivalence. Cultural equivalence is an approximate translation where the social language cultural word is translated by a target language cultural word. For example, the social language is dan Bendi terbang ke jurusan Surabaya. Target language-nya the buggy flew off in the direction of Surabaya. So Bendi is translated into buggy. The researchers analyzes the translator using cultural equivalent as its translation procedure. The translator has a cultural word that is associated with the word of Bendi. In KBBI, Bendi itu kereta beroda dua yang ditarik oleh kuda. According to Oxford Dictionary, Bendi is a small motor vehicle. So it's on the cultural. Fourth, functional equivalent. Functional equivalent is applied to cultural words, requires the use of culture, free word, and degree of meaning equivalent is partly equivalent. For example, dengan bantuan pangreh praja. So, with the aid of the native civil servants in colonial employ. In the search language of pangreh praja is translated into the target language of the native civil servants in colonial employ. The researchers analyzes the translator using the sentence of the native civil servants in colonial employ in target language as an appropriate function for pangreh praja. According to KBBI, pangreh praja adalah penguasa lokal pada masa pemerintahan kolonial Belanda untuk menangani daerah jajahannya. So the native civil servants in colonial employ in target language has the meaning like search language. And then the fifth is descriptive equivalence. Descriptive equivalent is an equivalent modified by describing the social language. For example, ia mengangkat caping. So he raised his bamboo hat. So caping is describing bamboo hat. Caping it's translated into bamboo hat. So it's describing the social language. So caping is a hat that's made from bamboo that usually wear by a farmer. And then the sixth is componential analysis. Componential analysis is the basic comparison of a social language word with a target language which has a similar meaning, but not an obvious one-to-one equivalent, by demonstrating first their common and then their differing sense components. For example, forgive, pardon. So componential analysis is effective when it comes to representing similarities and differences among words with related meanings. So the meaning is related. And the seven is synonymy. This procedure is used for a social language word where there is no clear one-to-one equivalence, when literal translation is not possible and the word is not imported in the text, in particular for adjectives or adverbs in quality. The degree of meaning equivalent is fully equivalent. For example, lidah pusaka. The target language is golden tongue. In the social language of lidah pusaka is translated into target language of golden tongue. The social language of lidah pusaka is translated into golden tongue, which has same meaning with golden tongue. 8. Through translation. Through translation is the literal translation of common collocations, names of organizations, and components of compounds. The degree of meaning equivalence is fully equivalent. For example, the social language is biar kamu mengaku di bawah semestinya. The target language will you admit all under their writing lips. In the social language of biar kamu mengakui di bawah semestinya is translated into target language of will you admit it all under their reading lips. The researchers analyze the translator using true translation. The sentence is translated by literal. So, according to KBBI, cemeti is cambu or pecut. The target language, according to Oxford Dictionary, whip is a strip of leather or length of cord fastened to a handle for flogging or beating a person or animal. So, this full equivalence does not change meaning between social language to target language. 9 is shift or transposition. Transposition or shift reflects the grammatical changes with Transposition or shift reflects the grammatical changes that occurs in translation from social language into target language. It is a procedure that basically concerned with words, form, and position. For example, social language for please abdominal stripe. Target language udatan berwarna keunguan di perut. So, for example, the head of the search language noun phrase is a stray and it's modified by two modifiers, namely purples and abdominal. Stray is a plural noun and when it is singular it is called stria. As shown in target language, stray is translated into guratan, indicating the change the terms of plural noun onto singular pronoun. Next, recognize translation. Translator normally uses the procedure of recognizing translation when there is the official or the generally accepted translation of any institutional term. For example, such language is more X-rays were ordered and ordinary CT scan was also done. The target language, diperintahkan untuk didahulukan lagi beberapa foto ronsen dan akhirnya dilakukan CT scan juga. X-ray, or also known as X-radiation, according to the Advanced Medical Dictionary, is a form of electromagnetic radiation. It is translated into photo ronsen, as in the name of a person, Wilhelm Röntgen. Photo ronsen is already familiar and commonly known by most people in Indonesia in dealing with radiation. So the translator must firstly identify which medical terms are familiar for most target readers in Indonesia and which are not. Next is compensation. Compensation occurs when the translation loss of meaning, sound effect, metaphor, or pragmatic effect on one part of sentence is compensated in a contiguous sentence. The degree of meaning equivalence uses full equivalent and partly equivalent. Search language-nya, for example, search language-nya, kakiku telah kesemutan. So the target language is my legs had gone to sleep. So it's the metaphor or pragmatic effect. Next, paraphrase. A paraphrase usually gives an explanation or a clarification of the text that is being paraphrased. It can make the reader easily understand the meaning of the certain phrase, depending on the translator's choice. Paraphrase can make the text sound more natural, more ambiguous, and more. It is a matter of impulse style in this case. An example of paraphrasing is, for example, the signal was red. We can observe here that besides expressing the same thing in a different way, paraphrasing actually gives an explanation. A paraphrase does not need to accompany a direct quotation. The paraphrase typically serves to put in a search statement into perspective or clarify the context in which it appeared. Next, couplets. Mark argues that translator may also combine 2, 3, or 4 different procedures when conducting translation process. Combining 2 procedures is described as couplets. Combining 3 procedures is described as triplets, and combining 4 procedures is described as quadruplets. For example, megaloblastic anemia, kurang darah megaloblastic. Megaloblastic anemia is translated using recognized translation and transference procedures as it becomes kurang darah megaloblastic. Anemia is, according to the Royal Medical Dictionary, does not actually mean lack of blood as it is conveyed in target language, but it means a condition where there is decrease in amount of hemoglobin or red blood cells in the blood. So the translator decided to translate anemia into kurang darah since this term is very familiar with Indonesian people. And the last is notes. Additional information in the translation might take various forms, such as filling the text, notes at bottom of page, notes at the end of chapter, notes or glossary at end of book, after observation tables. Note procedure are found with the combination of other procedures. For example, search language-nya, cardiovascular disease and hypertension, elevated cholesterol level, arrhythmias. Target language-nya, penyakit kardiovaskular, penyakit jantung dan pembuluh darah dan hipertensi, tekanan darah tinggi. So, social language known phrase above is translated literally into penyakit kardiovaskular, where the translator has literally translated the word while still being in accordance with a target language known phrase. In order to make clarity, especially on the word cardiovascular, which many people are not familiar with, the translator has also inserted additional information in the form to round bracket. Thank you so much. I think it's enough for me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi guys, how are you guys doing? I hope you guys doing well. So before we jump to the next discussion, let me introduce myself first. My name is Haliza Alfunsi Paharahap. You can call me Liza. I am 4th semester student in State Islamic University of North Sumatra, or UINSU. So today I would like to discuss with you about translation techniques. Alright, according to Molina and Albier 2002, translation consists of 18 techniques that we can use to translate words, sentence, or phrase from the source language into the target language. So this techniques is used to make us easy to translate words. Okay, so the focus is translating English to Indonesia or vice versa. Okay. The first technique is adaptation. So adaptation is the techniques that used to replace cultural elements in the SL with the cultural elements that exist in the TL. Jadi kita mengganti cultural elemen budaya yang ada pada bahasa target language ke bahasa source language yang ada di source language ke target language-nya. Nah, jadi ada beberapa kata yang tentunya tidak terdapat, beberapa kata Indonesia yang tidak terdapat di bahasa Inggris. Nah, jadi kita bisa replace that with the same cultural elements, dengan cultural elements yang sama. For example, kata sawah. Sawah tentunya tidak ada di dalam daily conversation-nya native speaker, and it doesn't exist. So we can replace them with the same cultural elements dengan elemen bahasa, dengan elemen budaya yang sama dari target language-nya. Nah, jadi kita bisa ganti sawah itu menjadi field misalnya. Nah, menjadi field gitu kan. Jadi kita bisa mengartikan itu sebagai field. Nah, teman-teman seperti itu. Another example I can give you is if you want to say nasi sudah menjadi bubur in English. The cultural elements to say nasi sudah menjadi bubur in English, of course, that is not exist because this is just used in Indonesia. So if you want to say nasi sudah menjadi bubur in English, you can look and you can find the match translation, the match words that we can use in to change the sentence to target language to the English. Okay, so nasi sudah menjadi bubur in English, we can say it as don't cry over the split milk. Don't cry over the split milk. So we can change that by looking at the cultural elements. Because the nasi sudah menjadi bubur in English doesn't exist, and native speaker never use it because it is just peribahasa in that Indonesian people use, just in Indonesia. Okay. Well, we jump to the next discussion. Okay. So the next technique is amplification or addition. Amplification means you can add the information when you translate a words or sentence. Adds the information that basically doesn't exist in the search language or in the search sentence. For example, the girl came late. So in Indonesia, you can usually you translate it as perempuan atau wanita itu datang terlambat. But in here, you can add the information to make it your sentence more clear. Nah, what is that? You can say wanita muda itu datang terlambat. Jadi wanita muda itu sebagai example ya, sebagai penambahan informasinya, like that. Jadi gunakan kata yang sepadan juga dengan kata dari source language-nya. Begitu juga dengan adaptation tadi. Nah, kita gunakan kata yang sepadan, teman-teman, dengan kata yang mau kita ubah ke target language-nya. Okay? Next is borrowing. So borrowing means peminjaman in Indonesia. So this technique is used words or phrases when translate the source language into target language. Borrowing is divided into two parts. First is pure borrowing, and the second is naturalized borrowing. So pure borrowing means you use the same sentence or words. Jadi kita tuh cuma ambil aja gitu bahasa atau kata yang ada di source language-nya ke target language. Contohnya seperti kata setting. Setting di Indonesia juga setting, teman-teman. Nah, jadi in English if you say setting, the people in Indonesia also say setting because that is the pure borrowing to translate the words easily. So you can just hear, and you can just use hear borrowing to translate your text or your sentence. Another word I can give you is the word genius. The people in Indonesia also use this word to say genius. Also use genius if they're amazed with someone. Wow, you are really genius. Wow, kamu tuh genius banget ya. Nah, seperti itu. Contohnya dari kata genius itu tadi. So the people in Indonesia also use genius because we can borrow the words or the sentence from our source language to target language to what the aims to make us easy, of course, to translate our text. Okay, so how about the naturalized borrowing? Natural borrowing means we can borrow the words of the source language that match with the spelling of the target language. So we can borrow the same words or the same spelling. It means that you not change the word. We can just also meminjam kata tersebut. Kita dapat borrow the words with the natural borrowing. So, for example, kata panik dalam bahasa Inggris juga panik in Indonesia. The word coffee is also coffee in Indonesia, and the word coffee is also coffee in Indonesia. So, if you want to translate something that has related to these words, you can use borrowing or natural borrowing to translate the text or the sentence. It will make us easy to translate it. So there is a two part of borrowing: pure borrowing and natural borrowing. Natural borrowing is the same spelling from the source language to the target language. Okay, next is the techniques of calc. Calc, or people call it as calcu, is a technique that same as literal translation or word-to-word technique translation, but the difference is you have to structure your words into looking at the syntax structure. If you already translate word to word, you have to make it clear, and you have to structure it again, and you have to check it again. For example, if you want to say, "I'm sorry, I cannot attend your birthday party today." So if you translate to Indonesia, you cannot use literal translation without a structure it. If you use the literal translation, the meaning will, maafkan saya tidak bisa menghadiri kamu birthday acara ulang tahun, party, pesta today, hari ini. Nah, jadi itu will not connected. Jadi you can use calc with the sentence structure, namely, maafkan saya tidak bisa menghadiri pesta ulang tahun kamu hari ini. Nah, jadi itu bisa disusun seperti itu. Nah, ini calc technique. Okay, we will discuss literal translation later. Okay, next is compensation. The compensation is a technique to replace the item information or position effects in the source language to the target language. So you just change the information item or the position from the source language into the target language. For example, if you want to say a couple of weeks, you can translate to Indonesia not beberapa minggu, but you can translate into 2 minggu. I will stay at your home a couple of weeks. Saya akan tinggal di rumah Anda saya akan tinggal di rumah Anda selama 2 minggu, for a couple of weeks. So we can change the item information atau informasi itemnya dari source language yang juga sepadan seperti itu, teman-teman, yang sama gitu. Nah, jadi ini hanya mengubah position atau posisi dari source language atau target language to make us easy, of course, to translate the text. Okay, next is description. So description is where you place the term in the source language with the description in the target language. This technique is used when the term in the search language doesn't exist in the target language. Of course, there is some term, and there are so many terms that not exist in the target language or that not exist in English. So if you want to say in bahasa, saya suka daun ubi tumbuh. Daun ubi tumbuh doesn't exist in English, so we can just use I like daun ubi tumbuh in target language, but you have to take the description. Daun ubi tumbuh is a vegetable dish from a Mandailing that made from cassava leaves, atau dibuat dari daun singkong. Jadi itu adalah makanan khas Mandailing yang dibuat dari daun singkong. Seperti itu teman-teman. The description is just the description or the explanation of the sentence or the words, like that. Easy, right? Inshallah. And next is descriptive creation. Descriptive creation is use of equivalent translation. So this equivalent, while away from the original context, this technique is often used in the translating book of movies, books, the title of the movies, books, or novels. So descriptive creation is special for translating the title of the movies, books, and novels, my friends. Okay. For example, if you want to translate Hunger Games, Hunger Games is in Indonesia doesn't exist because if you translate words to words, it means game kelaparan, but it doesn't exist. But it doesn't make any sense. So if you want to translate it, you can translate by take the equivalent, the balanced words to from the source language to the target language. So you can translate into game bertahan hidup. Hunger Games is game bertahan hidup by make the equivalent of it of the source language to target language. Okay. Next is established equivalent. So established equivalent translate terms in the source language that is already prevalent in the target language. The term in the source language is generally based on dictionary or phrase daily. So when you want to translate the words like sincerely yours or best regards, it's quite easy because you already know what it is, and it's contain. And if you want to make an applicant letter, if you want to apply for a job, and if you want to write a letter to your lecturer or something else, this is a very often used, and this is the phrase that you can use in daily. So you can look at the dictionary because it exists in the dictionary, and you'll be easy to find it. Okay, so this is the established equivalent. That is equivalent, something that balance when you see at the dictionary and you see at the daily phrase. Okay. Next is generalization. So generalization is a term translate a term that is already well known in public and known to the wider community. Is already known with the society or wider community. So if you want to translate the term, for example, like term angkot, istilah angkot. Angkot istilah yang ada hanya di bis ya, yaitu di Medan yang paling sering. Angkot di Medan, ya tentunya karena itu adalah angkatan transportasi yang sering digunakan orang-orang di Indonesia. So if you want to say angkot, you can just change and replace the words by vehicle. Vehicle means kendaraan, so it's not the specific term, but this is the generalization. This is the generalization that you can use if you want to translate the term that does not exist, and it's very it's a little bit funny if you translate if you use angkot words from your source language, and you can just change that into vehicle. Same as bajai. If you want to say bajai, you can just say vehicle. I take this vehicle every day to go to campus. Saya naik kendaraan ini setiap hari untuk pergi ke kampus. Nah, itu generalization. Kamu bisa menggunakan itu. Kalau misalnya bingung, apa sih ini gitu, angkot, bajai, apakah kita bisa menggunakan itu? No, you can use it like vehicle or transportation. Okay. Next is linguistics amplification. So linguistic amplification means adds element, yaitu menambah elemen linguistik dari source language to target language. For example, everything is up to you. Nah, kita bisa menambahnya dengan semua terserah Anda sendiri. Nah, itu bisa seperti itu teman-teman, yaitu dengan menambahkan elemen dari linguistik kata sendiri itu tadi. Harus dilingkari. Kemudian ada juga contoh lain, yaitu the dolphin comes out. The dolphin comes out in English, they're already clear. But in Indonesia, if we translate it, it will be so confusing for us. So we can add the elements by looking at the in the end of the sentence, the dolphin comes out, or we can replace that by lumba-lumba keluar dari air in Indonesia. So it's a very good for us if we want to translate something like that. Okay, next is linguistic comparison. So linguistic comparison is a little bit opposite with the amplification because this is compressed. It means you mengurangi katanya. Seperti contohnya, are you hungry? Kita bisa ngertiinnya itu hanya lapar. Jadi itu tetap nyambung teman-teman. Walaupun hanya segitu aja, tapi itu tetap namanya translation atau penerjemahan. Nah, oke, yang sepadan tentunya. Are you hungry? Lapar. Gitu. Nah, jadi itu masuk ke dalam simple term-nya atau istilah simpelnya. Oke, next is literal translation. I hope you still spirit, my friends. Literal translation that I already discussed with previous discussion. This is word-to-word translation. So if you want to translate word to word, you can use this techniques. This techniques means translate word to word. For example, if you want to translate, I will visit you next week. I atau aku will akan visit mengunjungi and something else. Okay, so you can translate word to word, but you have to see at the context also, because there is some words or there is some sentence that you cannot translate word to word. For example, like the sentence "killing the time before Maghrib," you cannot translate it word to word. You can you have to see the context. It means ngabuburit in Indonesia. Also same with maintaining ties of kinship. Silaturahmi is often used in Indonesia, but native speaker never use this in their daily conversation. So you have to shouldn't translate word to word, but look at the context. So this means silaturahmi or maintaining ties of kinship. Okay, easy, right? Next is modulation. So modulation is replace the focus or the point of view of the source language, either lexical or structural. So this is change the focus or the point of view from the sentence. For example, if you find a native speaker that talking with a man, by saying this, you are going to have a baby. It means that the man not have a baby, but kita bisa mengganti itu dengan arti kamu akan menjadi seorang ayah gitu. Bukan kamu akan mempunyai anak atau itu berarti dia akan hamil. No, but we can change it. Kau akan menjadi seorang ayah. Kamu akan menjadi seorang ayah. Nah, jadi kita bisa merubah fokusnya gitu, merubah sudut pandangnya gitu apabila kita mau mencocokkannya dengan sesuatu yang lebih spesifik gitu. Okay, just that. And next is particularization. Okay, particularization means the terms that are more concrete and specific. So this is also opposite, my friends. This is also opposite with generalization. If generalization, we can use the term that related and sepadan. But in this particularization, we have to use the concrete and specific words and specific sentence if you want to translate the words. For example, the girl likes to collect the jewelry. Kalau misalnya kita artikan, gadis itu suka mengoleksi perhiasan, perhiasan. Tetapi kita bisa membuatnya lebih spesifik, yaitu gadis itu mengoleksi kalung emas. Jewelry apa gitu, seperti itu. Nah, sama seperti tadi, angkot jenis vehicle apa gitu. What kind of vehicle? Jadi kita bisa langsung menunjukkan konkretan atau spesifiknya dari kata yang mau kita artikan ini. Okay, next is reduction. Reduction means memperpendek ya teman-teman in Indonesia. So reduction means condenses the information contained in the source language into target language. Compacting of information should not alter the text of the message in the target language. For example, the boy got a car accident. Jadi kita bisa memperpendeknya dengan lelaki itu mengalami kecelakaan. Just that. It's very simple. It's very simple. The boy got a car accident. Kita bisa, ya lelaki itu kecelakaan. Nah gitu. Jadi kita bisa memperpendek artinya kalau misalnya kita ingin melihat sesuatu itu berdasarkan hal yang perlu kita artikan seperti itu, apakah memang betul-betul kita mau perpendek atau tidak. Nah, kita bisa menggunakan teknik ini seperti itu. Okay, the next is substitution. Okay, the substitution replace the linguistic elements into paralinguistic such as intonation and gesture. Jadi substitution ini kita bisa mengartikannya ketika kita menjumpai teks yang memerlukan intonasi tertentu atau gestur tertentu. Nah, misalnya intonasinya kita perlu menambahkan exclamation mark atau tanda seru, punctuation mark atau bahkan gesture gitu. Nah, jadi kita bisa gantinya misalnya setuju, agree atau ya si speaker berkata ya. Jadi kita bisa nambahkan gesture di situ yaitu nodding head. Nodding head means yeah, like this. Ya atau agree. If you are listening to someone and you are agree, you will have a gesture like this, nodding head. Or if you say okay to someone, or if you say yeah to someone, you can also use thumbs up, thumbs up to the person you want to show about the something. So this is the something that are very important if the translation or the text in the search language use some intonation or gesture. You can change that. Okay. Next is transposition. Transposition reflects the grammatical categories of the certain language in the target language. For example, replacing the words to phrases. The techniques used because of a different grammatical between source language and target language. Of course, there is so many different and completely different grammatical rules from Indonesia and English. Both of it is very different in grammatical structure. So if you want to make it easy, you can choose this techniques. For example, I have no control over the situation, and you can just translate it. Saya tidak dapat mengendalikan situasi ini. Padahal yang seharusnya adalah I have no control. Have with control, have no control. It means tidak ada kendali. Tapi Anda bisa menggantinya dengan saya tidak dapat mengendalikan situasi ini. Jadi replace with others yang tentunya sepadan. Nah ini dia transposition, jadi gramatikalnya itu berubah gitu dari English to Indonesianya. Okay, that's it. And now we jump to the last point, and the last point is variation. Okay, the variation replace linguistics elements of our linguistic which influence the linguistics. That is the elements of paralinguistic and linguistics, yaitu penyatuan antara elemen paralinguistik dan linguistics. Yaitu, for example, textual change of tone, style of language, dialect, or geographical and social life. Jadi teman-teman di sini variation berarti kita mengartikannya sesuai dengan dialek atau gaya bahasa yang ada di target language-nya gitu. Nah, misalnya kita mengartikan ini nih di bahasa Inggris, give it to me now. Jadi kita bisa mengartikannya dengan kasih buku itu ke gue sekarang. Kasih buku itu ke gue karena benar-benar ini bahasa Indonesia banget gitu ke gue. Nah, itu bisa kita jadikan juga sebagai teknik dalam mengartikan atau dalam mentranslate kata-kata gitu. Nah, mana yang mudah gitu kita pilih bisa. Mana aja gitu. Ada 18 cara. Nah ini yang terakhir adalah cara kita menggantikannya dengan bahasa, dengan gaya bahasa atau dengan dialect dan and social language yang sama. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, kau ngapain sih? That is very Indonesian. So we can change that to the dialect and the language style and social language from the SL social language, the English into the target language or Indonesia or vice versa. Okay, my friends, that's all about my presentation today. I hope it useful for you and you can use it as your reference in learning translation, and you can practice it in your daily life. Also, is this little knowledge is also help me to improve my ability in understanding translation. And yeah, that's all about it. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm sorry if there is a mistake and if there is something that I give it wrong. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention today. Last words. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ariswanda, and I want to explain about translation method. Based on Macquarie Dictionary in 1982, a method is a way of doing something, especially in accordance with a definite plan. Based on this definition, two important things can be drawn. That method is a way of doing something, how to perform a translation, and a method with respect to a particular plan is in the implementation of the translation. And then there are some method for translation. The first is word forward translation. Word forward translation is the preservation of word order or individual word translation including cultural words. And then literal translation. Literal translation is the translation which the grammatical structure are converted into the nearest equivalent of the target language. And then faithful translation. Faithful translation is the translation that constrains the grammatical structures of the target text. And then semantic translation. Semantic translation emphasizes more on naturalness than in faithful translation. And then adaptation. Adaptation is the first form translation, and it is more of a target language or culture-based interpretation of the source text. Free translation. Free translation focus on the content of the target text rather than the form, which means that the same context is expressed in the target text, but with very different grammatical structure. And then idiomatic translation. Idiomatic translation uses idioms and colloquialisms that are not present in the source text. And the last is communication translation. It aims at reproducing the exact message of the source text content and context. It is all for me. I think it is enough. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.